Hi everybody, so this is the video in which I'm explaining what you're going to need to be doing for writing project number 2. For writing project number 2 is here in your um, Module 6, writing project number 2. Open the Module 6 folder, you'll see a number of things in there. Outline format. This is the general format that you've already had before, just to show you what the outline's supposed to look like, where you're supposed to use the Roman numerals to show what your topic sentences are, how you're supposed to underline, highlight, or otherwise indicate what your thesis is. So that information is here. I've got MLA first page format. Again, it's the same thing you had before, just a reminder of what that is, and then the MLA formatting video as before. But you might want to revisit some of those if you weren't getting 100% on your MLA formatting. You may want to revisit these to make sure that you're doing that correctly. And then you've got the actual assignment. Then down under here, you've got where you'll turn in the outline. That's due on Friday morning at 7 a.m. Or it's not due, it's suggested that it's due then. I'd like to have them due by then. And then down under here, it says, you can see items hidden from students. This is where you'll turn in the rough draft. You'll have a rough draft reflection, that's hidden, and your final draft, which is also hidden. I've just hidden those so you don't get confused, aren't worrying about doing that, and you don't upload things to the wrong place. But when the time comes, I will open these, and there'll be a place to submit your rough draft reflections, and your final draft, and we'll get to all of that next week. But just know here that this is where you will be submitting the outline. This is a bit more simplified than what we had for Module 3, because Module 3 is kind of showing you how to go through the process of outline, rough draft, final draft. I don't need to explain that necessarily as much for this one. So we've got something that's a little bit more simplified. So that's what's in the folder. Oh, and by the way, what's missing from this folder, as soon as I finish this video, I will upload this video. And so when you open it, you'll of course see that as well. So writing assignment is... writing project number 2. I say here assimilation. Assimilation is the process in which a member of a minority group adopts the values, behaviors, and beliefs of the majority group. The stories How to Date a Brown Girl, Black Girl, White Girl, or Happy, Hell Heaven, Saving Sardi, and Everyday Use all contain conflicts that come from one member of a family assimilating into mainstream American culture by banning certain cultural values or traditions. So if we look at all those stories, we have characters who are, again, kind of caught in between dealing with their family and certain family traditions, and potentially trying to do something different. I mean, even as simple as, in How to Date a Brown Girl, Black or White Girl, or Happy, when you get to that in the video, I mentioned how he wants to hide the garbage can with the pieces of toilet paper on it, because in their family they don't flush toilet paper down the toilet, they put it in a trash can, and so he's hiding from that. He wants to hide those pictures of him with an afro and with his cousins out in the campo, out in the country, and so he is, again, kind of attempting in some ways to assimilate. We can say the same thing, of course, in Hell Heaven, that when you read that, if you read that one, it becomes obvious. In Saving Sardi, Everyday Use, we've got the one sister who is going to leave for college, become more educated, and adopt certain values that are going to be very foreign to the rest of the family. So all of those stories deal with issues of assimilation. So I say for major project number 3, you'll need to write about any one, right, only one, of the above stories, and discuss how the author uses symbols and or metaphors to communicate his or her ideas about this process of giving up family traditions and values in order to assimilate. What does the author want to tell us? About what is gained and what is lost when characters give up those traditions and values, and what does the author want to say about whether the trade-off is worth it? Because there are things that are gained or lost, right? I mean, there's a sense in which, just using How to Date a Brown Girl, as an example, there's a sense in which, he feels that he's able to be accepted by these girls that he's dating if he abandons some of those values, and so that's something gained. But is there also something personally lost, right? That he loses some potential connection with the rest of his family and culture and heritage. So what are those gains and losses, and is the trade-off going to be worth it? And then this essay is a little bit different from the previous one in the sense that I say, I want you to you should also explore your personal connection to any of the characters' stance on assimilation. Do you identify with any of them? If so, exactly how? If not, exactly what is different? What symbols from the story resonate with you, or what symbols from your own life resonate with events in the story? You, of course, might not be from the same cultural background as the characters, but you can be of a similar background as someone and still feel as if you understand where they're coming from. So what is your specific connection to any of that, right? How is it that you potentially identify with some of the issues that are being raised in the story? So this is an opportunity for you to kind of connect yourself to that. I say in here, you must have a thesis that is more specific than the prompt. So for example, if you're writing about the lesson, you cannot write about that. Again, that's not one of the ones on the list. Just using as an example, you could not have a thesis that says, in the lesson, it makes sense to me when Tara uses the clown as a symbol to show how Sylvia is willing to assimilate into a mainstream American culture, because I have had similar experiences. I say that this would not work as a thesis because it doesn't show a specific understanding of what happens in the story or make a specific statement about your own life, right? And those words specific are what are important here, right? Specifically what happens in the story and specifically what's going on in your own life. So let's look at an example of what would work as a potential thesis. Say, however, you could write, in the lesson, Toni Cade Bambara uses the clown as a symbol to show us that Sylvia is willing to give up the comfort and familiarity of her culture in her African-American neighborhood in order to join a largely white American culture which has greater economic opportunities. Although I am from a different background, my experience immigrating to America made me come face to face with similar choices as Sylvia. Right? I want you to realize that your thesis can have more than one sentence here. But you see this specificity there, right? That is, I talk about it on the next page. Notice that the second thesis tells us specifically what Sylvia feels she will give up: comfort and familiarity, and what she will gain: greater economic opportunities. So your thesis shows very specifically what that trade-off is, and that's the kind of analysis I want you to do on your own. You have to look at the story yourself and say, what is somebody giving up and what are they gaining? What is the balance here? Because if we don't know that, we don't know specifically whether the choice is going to be worth it. And that thesis also tells us exactly how the writer's experiences relate to Sylvia's, right? That is, this person is going to be, the family has immigrated to the United States, and they felt that in the process of doing that, they had to make some of those similar choices, right? So your thesis should do the same, right? You should be talking about specific choices that the character in the story has to make, and specifically how those choices relate to your own life. I say here, realize that some of the characters, such as Sardi and Maggie, are not willing to give up their cultures to enter into mainstream society. Kind of gave that to you, but it should be obvious that they aren't willing to do that. You can still write about those characters, but your thesis will need to discuss what specific elements of their culture they are refusing to give up and what specific opportunities they might be missing out on. So they're kind of the opposite. But it's okay, because if we've got a choice like this, if we're balancing out making a choice about what we're going to give up and what we might gain, we might come to different decisions, and so different characters are coming to different decisions here. I say here, one of the biggest challenges you'll face in writing this assignment is balancing your discussion of the story and personal experiences. This assignment is about both you and the story, so the reader should never feel like one is being discussed at the expense of the other. You should talk about both of them. The project needs to be 3 pages long in an MLA format. Then I've got a rubric down here. As I say, of course, the rubric, like before, the rubric here is just to tell you what you need to do as you're moving from the rough draft to the final, how well you're progressing on some of those ideas. So I don't grade on those. Those don't fit in with your actual grade, but these are the elements that I'm going to be looking for. So that has to do with the thesis, organization, that is, how well is it balanced, that you've got examples both from the story and your personal life, MLA format, and clear writing. So again, that's the nature of the assignment. You can begin working on the outline, and then as next week we'll start working with the rough draft and reflection and final draft.